Hello, my name is Tony. British Westerns. Sounds like a contradiction in terms, doesn't it? But there have been more than a few over the years. For example, The Sheriff of Fractured Jaw, The Singer Not the Song, Carry On Cowboy, Shalako, Captain Apache, A Town Called Bastard, Straight to Hell. And let's not forget Michael Winner's superlative Chateau's Land. I mean, how could we? Released in 1971, seen by yours truly about 2 years later when it meandered its way to the Market Hall cinema, Hannie Caulder proved to be one of the very best of this counterintuitive subgenre. A British-made proto-feminist western action movie, headlined by a major-league Hollywood sex symbol and much objectified male fantasy figure Raquel Welch. Stranger still, the film was produced and mostly funded by Tony Tenser's Tigon Studios, a British movie company traditionally associated with cheapo horror and exploitation films. To its list of credits are Witchfinder General, Blood Beast Terror, Blood on Satan's Claw, The Sorcerers, The Creeping Flesh, and numerous softcore porn and grindhouse imports. So how the hell did this happen? Well, pilgrims, from what I understand, Raquel Welch's then husband, Patrick Curtis, the nephew of director Billy Wilder, who had inherited none of his uncle's talent, was a hack movie producer who made it his mission in life to promote his wife's career, for the time he was married to her anyway, which was destined not to be very long. Curtis was her second husband. They married in 1967 and divorced in 1972. He'd been an associate producer on Tigon's The Sorcerers in 1967, so he knew Tenser. His proposal was for Tigon to bankroll a project starring his wife. Tenser, an avid Western fan, suggested they go for either a Western or a horror flick, or how about a Western? And Hannie Caulder was born, so to speak. Veteran Burt Kennedy was hired to direct. Kennedy had an enviable pedigree with westerns, having either worked on or directed films starring Randolph Scott, Henry Fonda, Glenn Ford, John Wayne, Kirk Douglas, and Robert Mitchum. He would later co-script Clint Eastwood's White Hunter, Black Heart. He reportedly rewrote much of the Hannie Caulder script under the pseudonym ZX Jones. Score was by Ken Thorne, who had worked on the musical comedy A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, and cinematography fell to Edward the Dirty Dozen Scaife, so mostly safe hands on the tiller. In the co-star slot with Welch, seasoned TV and movie character actor Robert Culp was engaged, and in fairness he turns in an absolutely excellent performance as the gunfighter and bounty hunter Thomas Luther Price. Rest of the cast includes villainous standbys Ernest Borgnine, Jack Elam and Strother Martin as the Clemens brothers, low-life murderous rapists to a man. Stephen Ben Herb Boyd pops up in an uncredited cameo as a mysterious gunfighter known only as Preacher. Diana Dawes, once marketed as Britain's answer to Marilyn Monroe in the same way that Cliff Richard was to Elvis Presley, puts in an appearance as a madam of a brothel, and Christopher Lee, yes, that Christopher Lee, is cast as a very English-sounding gunsmith. It looks a flighty, eclectic ensemble, one that feels as though it were concocted in a strange hallucinogenic dream, but it's one that works out perfectly fine in execution. In fact, for the most part, it's a much better film performance-wise than you might have imagined it to be. Filmed in Almeria, Spain, where location shooting was dirt cheap, it tells the story of Hannie Caulder. The title sort of alludes to that a bit, a frontier wife of a rancher. It's a hard-scrabble life, but they seem happy enough. Difficulty lies in accepting as believable anyone who looks the way Raquel Welch does is eking out a living on a dirt farm, but for the sake of convenience, let's just imagine it's for the love of a good man and move on. Half-wit, borderline mentally disabled degenerates, the Clemens brothers, Borgnine, Elam and Martin, fuck up a bank robbery and leg it in search of a place to hole up. They happen across the ranch and before you know it, they've shot Hannie's husband, and all three are taking turns at forcibly wearing down her pubic hair before you can say Fanny Balder, which would have been a far worse title for the film. Well, probably. Taking their unsavoury pleasures and anything else they want, they set fire to the homestead and leave Hannie to die. She manages to escape the inferno and survive. Thomas Luther Price, Robert Culp, a bespectacled bounty hunter and gunslinger, happens by and helps Hannie out. She tags along with him and eventually persuades him to teach her how to use a gun so she can track down the Clemens brothers and exact revenge. Hannie picks things up quickly and Price takes her to Bailey, Christopher Lee, who is a friend and gunsmith. He makes her a custom rig more suited to her physical dimensions. Note, this isn't sexism, just a case of being practical, so don't bite just yet. At Bailey's place by the sea, bandits attack, and whilst they're being repelled, Hannie has the opportunity to shoot a man at point-blank range. She can't bring herself to take a life like this, which prompts Price to advise her to give up on her plan of revenge, because it will likely end up with her getting killed. Hannie won't quit though, and continues to track down her prey until the bloody bitter end. So why is this film good? Well, it's a very competent revenge flick, lean and compact with an economical running time and no unnecessary frills or plot deviations, and it is notable as the first serious neo-western that places a female character front and centre. More than that, it achieves the feat of persuading the male contingent of the audience to desist from seeing Hannie simply as a token sex object, but as a genuine protagonist to root for. Much of this is down to a committed and resolute performance from Raquel Welch and the way in which the script divines moral and emotional differences in the male characters. Culp is quiet, strong, thoughtful, and although tough with an ability to kill, possesses humanity and compassion. He is intelligent and therefore does not view Hannie as a non-person to be used sexually and then discarded. His interest in her is not primarily sexual, more a mentor-mentee relationship. The Clemens brothers are his polar opposites, unwashed, stupid morons driven by animalistic urges in place of any reason, respect, thought, or care. Similarly, Christopher Lee is more like Culp in his equitable treatment and behaviour towards Hannie, whilst other peripheral male characters are portrayed as dumb, leering, sexist exponents of unwanted attention, but Hannie rises above it with resilience and dignity and more than holds her own. Okay, a feminist mindset would most likely pick up on the fact that Hannie, a woman, is rescued by Price, a man, a damsel in distress requiring male intervention, thus perpetuating an ancient patriarchal cliché. But if Hannie had been a man unskilled in guns and gunplay, it is more than conceivable that the narrative would have been much the same. Hannie uses Price to teach her the skill she needs, and when he tells her to give it up, she leaves him and carries on alone. Sounds like a positive feminist message about choice and independence to me. It's worth adding that when faced with taking a life and unable to pull the trigger, this is not intended and should not be interpreted as an example of feminine weakness. It's not that she can't do it because she's a woman, but because she's a person who is a novice and inexperienced in such things. A man in the same situation would have reacted the same. I would have. Well, probably. Unless it was some bastard I really wanted to shoot in the face. In which case, there you go. There are some great lines of dialogue, mostly from Welsh.
You're a hard woman, Hannie Caulder.
Like the man said, there aren't any hard women, only soft men.
There are no hard women, only soft men, is one satisfying zinger that hits home. Again, what can I say? When I saw this film, I absolutely loved it. It radiates a cool, spaghetti-like ambiance, provides sufficiently dynamic bursts of rousing action with plenty of fake blood splashed around. The gang rape scene is degradingly repellent without being overly explicit or exploitative, but certainly emotionally affecting enough to get the audience on Hannie's side. Turning the Clemens brothers into figures of fun, however, is a bit of a misstep, as it diminishes their evil and despicable natures somewhat. Despite that, you still want them to get what's coming, and you want Hannie to be the deliverer of their comeuppance. Historically, in pop cultural terms, this is an important movie. True, it was sold to a male audience on sex. Sex sells, folks, an undeniable truth, and in this case, it was exploited to that end. Checking out the promotional material, most of the visual cues and hooks are based around Raquel Welch's physical appearance, but this is just manipulation of unrealistic male sexual expectations. Welch may have been both scantily and provocatively clad and posed, but the simple fact is that in all her screen career, she never did any explicit nudity, full frontal or otherwise. The closest you'll get is this type of backshot. It's all too easy to imagine that she was frequently put under pressure as an actress to bear role for the camera, but she made her choice, defined what she found acceptable and not in her career, never caved in, and stuck to her guns. So whatever the posters, trailers and lobby cards seem to suggest or promise, you weren't going to necessarily get. Which doesn't make it any more or less manipulative than the selling of any movie. More obvious and blatant unkept promises have been made by movie promotional media throughout history. Miss Welch is not the best actress in the world, which I suspect she's aware of, but here she gives the role her best shot and she makes a convincing fist of it. It's a picture she clearly wanted to make, evidenced by her refusing a fee up front and instead agreeing to take financial remuneration from the profits. I don't know what the film cost to produce, but the box office returns in the US were an estimated $4.6 million. If it was worth her while financially, again I don't know, but my gut feeling is that there was more to it than that. I think she saw it as a positive opportunity that outweighed to some extent direct financial gain. In the context of the times, it was rare for an actress to be the leading character in mainstream movies generally, let alone a western, which was an exclusively male preserve, so Hannie Caulder is unique in that respect and can be considered as groundbreaking. Yeah, sure, you could look back and think, well, it should have done more to further the female cause. flaws. It should have done things differently, should have done things better. But when you put it into the historical perspective, it was an important step in the right direction. Tarantino is a long-time fan and advocate, and cites it as an influence and partial inspiration for Kill Bill, so there are those who still remember and rate it. To be clear, Hannie Caulder is not a great movie. It's not a classic western. It was sold on quite sexist and conflicting imagery, but it is good, solid, well-made entertainment, and the main character and Raquel Welch's portrayal of her helped make it stand out as something of a milestone. I could tell you I went to see it primarily because I like westerns, I like action movies, I wanted to see what the hell Christopher Lee was up to in this, and that would all be to some extent true. But mostly I would be lying if I said I didn't find Raquel Welch seemingly naked beneath a poncho, toting a six-gun, a supremely attractive proposition. Yep, sexist male pig that I am, but at least I'm being honest. And when you get into the movie, it becomes less about how the character looks, her physical assets, and more about how events affect and shape the character's destiny and what she does about it, how she grows, develops, adapts and pursues her goals. Less your standard cardboard cutout, pneumatic male sexual fantasy figure, and more of a flesh and blood person, which should come for something, right? Thanks sincerely for your time and attention. If any of this has provided any entertainment value whatsoever, please consider hitting like, don't like, leaving a comment or subscribing. I'll be back, that's today's threat. Meanwhile, here's a song called Good Grief Woman. I'm going to continue using the term woman to refer to women until it's cancelled out of the English language, and when that happens, I'm still going to use it. So tough shit, snowflakes. I'm old school. The inoculated city like a painting. She stood there with her back against the view. Smokestacks in the distance nailed the fall. Acid etched the parkland leaves like morning dew. Warehouse frontage floating on the river. Rippled as her image slipped anew. Pouring appetites that always bind, set free like a killer breaking loose. She made me feel like I would die, drowning deep within her eyes. They love me now, I heard her cry. Oh, good grief, woman, so why? Ceiling fans, slow turning blades, rhythmic thumping, beating on the bed. Should have died long ago on this crusade, with a cross burned into my head. A fast eroded barrage by the ocean. She leaned into the crashing of the surf. Ghostly apparition, hooded black, skin as pale as winter snow upon the earth. She made me feel like I would die, drowning deep within her eyes. They love me now, I heard her cry. Oh, good grief, woman, so do I. Oh, good grief, woman, so do I.